Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Simplykrystelle. So today's video is going to be the eyeshadow palette tag video. So I've been seeing a lot of videos around and a lot of people are doing like an eyeshadow palette tag, and I believe it was started by Allie, Glines, and Samantha March here on YouTube, and I watch Allie Glines all the time. I really love her stuff on YouTube, so I decided to just do the eyeshadow palette tag. So I'm going to be talking about my eyeshadows in my collection and answering like the questions from the tag. So before we get on to the video, guys, please press the subscribe button down below if you like my channel, if you like my video. I would really appreciate if you guys subscribe to my channel, and also please give this video a thumbs up, and let's get on to the eyeshadow palette tag. Guys, on my phone I have all the categories from Allie Glines' video, so I'm going to start off with my newest palette. So the newest palette that I recently just bought, actually I bought this palette yesterday at Target to do this eye look, which I will have a tutorial coming up of this eye look. But the newest palette that I have is this palette right here. This is the NYX Ultimate Edit Petite palette, and this palette is very colorful. It has a lot of rainbow colors, and the reason why I bought this palette was to create the look that I have right now. Like, I really wanted to do like a rainbow type of look, and I was really inspired to do like a rainbow look, especially because it's like coming up summertime. So I bought this palette. So this is my newest palette that I have. I know it's not like super interesting or anything like that, but this is the newest palette that I recently bought. I just bought this yesterday, and it's such a vibrant palette, such a beautiful colorful palette, and I was really intrigued to buy it because it inspired me to create the rainbow look. So this is my newest palette that I have. My oldest palette that I have in my collection right now is this one right here. This is the Anastasia Shadow Couture World Traveler palette. You guys, back in the day, like 5 years ago, this was the palette I used to wear all the time. I used to always wear Morocco as my like crease transition shade, and I always used to wear it with intense glaze, and I used to use pink champagne a lot. Like, these were my three go-to shades from this palette. I love and still love this palette. I don't wear it as much anymore. Like, I don't really reach for it anymore, but I will say that Morocco is like the best transition shade ever. Like, I absolutely love Morocco a lot. I first started getting into makeup, this was probably the only palette I had, and I actually bought this off of Mercari because I think back when I wanted this palette, they didn't have it in store. This was back in 2015, and I think this palette came out in 2014. I'm not sure like the dates this came out, but I was absolutely in love with this palette, so I bought it from Mercari, and this was the only palette that I had back then in my collection, and this was the palette that I was wearing all the time, especially like those three shades. I loved this palette. I still love the color story of this palette. This is such a beautiful palette too. Like, you have your little blue, and you have like your neutrals, and like you have your pops of color, and I feel like you can create so many looks with this palette. Like, I wish they would come out with this like a revamped version of this, because this was honestly such a beautiful palette, and it is my oldest palette, but I will always keep this. I will always keep it because of like the memories associated with this palette, even if I don't reach for it. But I just love this palette for like what it is, you know. So the most expensive palette that I have is actually the Urban Decay Naked 3 palette. This one runs for $54, and yeah, so this is the most expensive palette that I do have in my collection for $54. I don't use this palette anymore like that. I haven't reached for this palette in years. I mean, when I first got it, the reason why I got this palette was because of the rosy tones in the palette. Like, I was like, oh, the rosy tones are so beautiful. But honestly, guys, I don't reach for this palette at all. Like, I don't reach for it at all. I don't ever like say, oh, I want to create a look with this palette. I mean, it's a beautiful like rosy toned palette, and it is really like pretty, the rosy tones, but honestly, guys, I don't reach for this palette at all. Like, I don't know, I just don't reach for it. And it was a pretty penny, because $54 is a lot of money. But I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for me that is a lot of money. But I just don't really reach for this palette like that anymore. So yeah, I mean, I have it, and I'm gonna keep it in my collection just because, I don't know, like I like to keep things because of memories and just because of like, you know, like personal things, like reasons and stuff. But I don't really reach for this palette, and it is the most expensive palette that I do have in my collection. And honestly, like I feel like the shades in here were a little bit hard to work with. Like they're not as smooth, buttery, and pigmented as some of my other eyeshadows that I have in my collection. They're way more affordable than this palette, and I feel like I get so much more color payoff than them. So I feel like this palette, like it is a beautiful color story and stuff, but I also feel like I have other palettes that are more affordable and other palettes that I reach for so much more than this one, and I feel like I get better color payout from them. So there's nothing against this palette, I just don't reach for it. The next category would be the most affordable palettes, and I would have to say these right here by Wet n Wild, the Color Icon palettes are the most affordable palettes that I do have in my collection. These retail for like $4 or $5. Like usually at Walgreens, I think they are like about $5. Yeah, about $4 or $5, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shades in these palettes, and these retail for about $4 to $5. Like these palettes are so amazing, you guys. Like these are beautiful, beautiful palettes. Like literally, like you get so much pigment and you get so many variety of shades, and they each have their own color story. So this one would be more of like the neutral one. This one's a little bit more pop of color. They have one that's more like reds and oranges and warm shades, and I just love that about it. And Wet n Wild, to be honest with you guys, they make some amazing shadows. They are so like pigmented and so affordable, and these palettes I definitely recommend them 100%. If you are someone who's just starting off in makeup, or even if you're not starting off in makeup and you're just looking to try new palettes that are affordable at the drugstore, I would definitely recommend these from Wet n Wild. They're so affordable and just so amazing and super pigmented, and you will get a lot of color payout from these. These are amazing palettes. The next one that she has is her everyday palette. So my everyday palette is definitely this right here. This is the Dose of Colors Baked Browns palette. This is definitely my everyday palette, my go-to palette that I have for every single day. Like I talk about this before, but this palette I love just popping on this shade right here, and actually mixing this shade and this shade and just popping into my crease and walking out the door, especially on those days that I just have to go to work, or those days that I don't feel like wearing a lot of makeup. This is definitely an amazing everyday palette. I love these palettes by Dose of Colors, these little 5-pan palettes. I think that they're so creamy, so buttery, so pigmented, and the colors in here are so natural and so like you can create so many great everyday looks with this palette. Like you don't need to reach for your other palettes, or you don't need to reach for any other colors to create a very natural and subtle look, and these blend so nicely and so smooth and just so easily. And I absolutely love using this palette on an everyday basis. Like if I had to choose like one palette to wear every day, it would be this one for sure, because it's so natural and it's so like just very beautiful and super easy to work with. And this is an amazing everyday palette. So this would be my go-to everyday palette, and I absolutely love this palette. The next category that she has is most colorful. So the most colorful palette that I have in my makeup collection would be the Urban Decay Electric palette. Like, do you guys remember this palette? Do you guys remember when people were actually using this palette and wearing this palette? This came out a really long time ago, but this is definitely my most colorful and vibrant palette. Like look at these shades, you guys. Like look how bright and just colorful and bold these shades are. There's not one like natural shade in this palette, maybe except like this purple right here, but I absolutely think that this is like the most like vibrant and such like pop of color palette, and I feel like we don't see these like palettes like this anymore. And these shades are so like creamy and buttery and very pigmented. Like look at the swatch of this blue, like look at that. I mean, like this is very vibrant, and this is such a colorful palette. Like I actually want to do like a neon look using this palette. Really tempted to do like a super neon bright look with this palette, because I feel like nobody talks about this palette anymore, and this is such a great like neon-y palette to have. And this is such a beautiful like colorful palette. And I don't think, guys, I have used this palette. I've used it one time I think I used this shade, and I think I used this shade in the blue. I'm not sure, I don't remember, but this is such a nice, vibrant, like pop of color palette. I'm tempted to do like a neon look with this because now I just opened it. I'm like, I want to do something with this. But this is my most colorful palette right here. Now, the smallest palette that I have is these right here. This is so cute. This is the e.l.f. Bite-Size Eyeshadow Palette. These are tiny. These are like 4 pans, and this is the smallest eyeshadow palette that I have. I consider this an eyeshadow palette. I know it's like really small, but I still consider it a palette because it says, you know, bite-sized eyeshadow palette, so it's a palette, right? But this is the smallest eyeshadow palette that I have. These are so cute, and these are really pigmented. I've talked about these in my favorites before. These are really pigmented, super smooth, super creamy, super easy to work with. These are great eyeshadows. Even though they're mini like palettes and very small, you can still create an abundance of look with just one. Like this one right here, it's very natural colors, and this one broke. It came in broken, but you can still create like a really full look with this. And if you have like all of them, you can create like even a big palette with them, because I think they have like 8 of these, and each of them have 4, so it's 32 shades in total. So you could create like your own like big palette if you have like a Z palette or something. But these are really great shadows. I have nothing bad to say about these. These like are like comparable to like high-end shadows, and this is probably my favorite palette from e.l.f. that e.l.f. has created. Like I know they have the other ones, but these I think are so much better than the ones that they have in the larger pans. These are probably the best e.l.f. eyeshadows that I've tried, the bite-sized ones, and I really like these. My biggest palette that I have, so we just did the smallest, so my biggest palette I have are definitely the Morphe palettes. These palettes are huge, you guys. Like, look how big these are. I mean, if you have Morphe palettes, you know that these are huge palettes, and I feel like all the palettes I'm showing you guys, I have like a broken shade in them. Like, it's like all my palettes want to break, but these Morphe palettes are freaking huge. This is the 3502 palette, and Morphe just has always made big palettes ever since they came out. You know, they always had huge palettes. Like, that's, I think it's one of the things they're known for, is like those huge palettes, and this is definitely my biggest palette that I have in my collection. And you know what this reminds me of? I feel like, you know, like makeup artists, and when they come to do your makeup, or like I remember like when I have a wedding, like this just reminds me of the palettes that makeup artists use. And when they come like with their palettes and stuff, this just reminds me of like a makeup artist palette. But Morphe palettes are definitely the biggest palettes that I have and in my collection, and they're really great quality. Like, they're super smooth, super buttery, super pigmented, and super affordable. Like, I think this palette is like $20 something, so you get all of these shades for about $20 something, which is amazing and which is really good. And they're very great quality shadows. I know there's like some controversy with Morphe. I don't really know much about the whole Morphe brand, but I just know that they are really great shadows, and just such pigmented and so buttery and so creamy. And I absolutely love this palette. I love this palette especially for like a warm orange red look, which are my favorite looks to do, which are like warm orange looks. But I really think that these palettes are amazing, and they're really big and super affordable. So if you're looking for like a palette that has a lot of shades and that's big and has a lot of colors in it, definitely check out a Morphe palette, because I don't think you'll regret it. They're so pigmented, so easy to work with, and great shadows. My best memory palette, it would have to honestly be my oldest palette. So my best memory palette, you guys, would have to be the Anastasia World Traveler palette. I don't know, like, I feel like when I was using it back in 2015, back in 2016, I had so many great memories with this palette. It was the time when I was like turning 21, and I was going out clubbing and just having like a lot of fun with my friends and stuff. So I would definitely say that this would be my best memory palette, because those years, and I was in college too, and I was just going out a lot and having a lot of fun. I mean, I wasn't getting too crazy or anything, but I just have a lot of great memories with this palette. And I think it's like when I started my love for makeup, when my passion and love for makeup first started, was with this palette. So that is I would say my best memory palette. Definitely this palette, because there's so many great memories I have with this palette, and just so many like great times with my friends and in my family, and just a lot of great memories with this palette. So this would be my best memory palette. A palette that I think is definitely worth the hype. You guys probably already know this, but I definitely think the Anastasia Modern Renaissance is worth the hype 100%. Like, this is one of the palettes that I feel like you need in your collection. I just feel like it's like such a beautiful, gorgeous palette, and it definitely is worth all the hype it gets, and it definitely deserves all the hype that it gets. I think, and I always say this, that this is probably the best palette Anastasia has created, and I just really love this palette, and I just think that it deserves all the hype that it gets, and it's such an amazing palette, and it is an awesome palette, and I love this palette so much, and I still use it, and I will continue to use it, and I just love it a lot. And a palette that I don't think is worth the hype, or was worth the hype back then, would be the Tartelette palette by Tarte. So this palette, when it came out a couple years ago, a lot of people were loving it. A lot of people were like die-hard fans of this palette. I honestly don't think it's a great palette. Maybe because it didn't work that well for my skin tone. Maybe that's why I didn't think it was such a great palette. But honestly, guys, like, these shades are so like ashy and cool toned, and I just honestly don't think it's worth the hype. Like, back then it was worth a lot of hype, so I just feel like it wasn't worth the hype. Like, and I'm not, you know, bashing the brand or saying anything bad about the brand, but I honestly just feel like this palette, like, just, it didn't do anything. Like, it wasn't a great palette. Like, it was just and it was very chalky. Like, these shades, like, I have the Tartelette Toasted palette. Shadows in the Toasted palette are not chalky like this palette. Like, these shades were so hard to blend and so hard to work with, and just so chalky. So I just feel like this wasn't worth the hype back then. Like, people don't talk about this palette anymore, but back then people really loved this palette, and people were really like die-hard palettes, and it had so much hype, and it was a lot of people's holy grails. But I just feel like this palette was not worth the hype, and is still not worth the hype, and it's such a chalky palette. And it's not me talking, you know, bad about the brand, because I don't want to insult the brand and stuff, but I just feel like this palette was just not it. It's just not it. The next category that she has is favorite palette from a favorite brand, and honestly, like, I don't have like a favorite brand. Like, I have so many palettes that I just love so much, but my favorite palette from a favorite brand, I don't know. Like, I honestly cannot choose one palette from a favorite brand. Like, I have multiple favorite brands that I love. Favorite palette from a favorite brand, that's hard. It's really hard, because I don't have like a favorite palette from a favorite brand. I honestly, like, all these palettes that I have that I really like, I genuinely like them, so I don't know which one to do. So I'm not gonna do that one. I'm not going to do that one, the favorite palette from favorite brand. I'm not going to do that one. I'm not going to answer that one, because I don't know. I really don't know. So I'm going to go to the last one. So the last one is my most used palette. Most used palettes would definitely have to be the Modern Renaissance by Anastasia. I use this palette all the time. I've used it all the time. Like, I'm almost hitting pan on burnt orange. I mean, it's not like evident that I'm hitting pan, but I can see a little silver thing in it. But this is definitely my most used palette, and I would say at the moment right now, my most used palette that I'm using a lot would definitely be the Dose of Colors Baked Brown palette. I've been using this palette all the time. I've been using it a lot off camera, especially in the days that I don't want to wear like a lot of makeup. That would be my most used palette. And I have a Z palette from ColourPop too that I use a lot, but I don't know if that's considered a palette because it's a lot of like single eyeshadows, so I don't want to show that one. But those would definitely be like my most used palettes. That's basically it for the eyeshadow tag. I really hope you guys liked like this video and this type of video. If you guys have any video suggestions, please let me know in the comment section down below, because guys, like, I film what you want to see. I film whatever you guys want to see, whatever you want me to talk about, I will film it. So please let me know if there's any videos that you guys want to see, or if you guys want me to film, or is there anything you guys want me to try out. I will try it out for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and before you guys go, I wanted to tell you that it's not too late to start working on something that you've always wanted to work on. If you have a business you want to start, if you have a dream that you want to go after, it's not too late, and it's never ever too late. And don't think that you can't do it, because, and this is coming from someone like who's thought that way. Like, I used to think that I couldn't do this YouTube thing because I was like, I don't look like these girls on YouTube, I don't dress like them, I'm not gonna, you know, like, who's gonna want to watch me on YouTube? And here I am doing YouTube. So I just wanted to tell you guys that don't think that it's too late for you to ever start something new, and don't think that you don't fit in somewhere. And you know what, I'm happy I look the way I look because I'm, you know, I'm me and I'm unique, and why would I want to be like everybody else? So I just want you guys to know that today, that if you have something that you want to go after, and if you have a dream or aspiration that you want to do, go after it. Seriously, go after your dream. Go after it. So that is it for the eyeshadow palette tag. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. That is it for this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you are not subscribed yet. And yes, I'm watching you. And also please give this video a thumbs up. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.